Was John McAfee exercising his Second Amendment rights in beautiful paradise country Belize in Central America? Let's talk about it. We're talking about here about John McAfee, who was the creator and founder of antivirus McAfee software company. That's a very successful uh, tech company. Of course, he passed away a few years ago in Spain. But we're talking about the Second Amendment rights of American, the rights to bear arms, of course, to protect yourself, to protect your family, which is very valid. I mean, for one, there was a reason why this Second Amendment, one of the 26 amendments of the U.S. Constitution, that was enacted, after the Constitution, of course, many many years ago. So talking about McAfee in Belize, I mean, he was, of course, living in paradise country. He held a British passport also. A British passport. He has a, he held it. He is British nationality, but of course he was a U.S. citizen also. So while in Belize, we saw. I mean, it was in public display in social media, of course. Um, his whereabouts. I mean, his where he was living, where he was, how his life was in Belize. A little, I would say, a little bit, crazy, a little bit for a normal standard for somebody. Somebody like him. He was a well-known figure in the world. I mean, because of his antivirus creation. That he created. He said he created those, that software, antivirus, software in a couple of days, 2 days actually. So, but let's talk about keep digging in more into the what does it mean to possess, weapons? I mean, for you, is it for your own protection? Is it because you for sports? I mean, hunting, or for a little paranoia in a way. A little bit. I'm not, an expert in this, the field of mental health issues or such and such, right? But um, the display on social media was, very much, I mean, a little extreme in some cases where, he wasn't that he had, it wasn't just that he had the private security people, you know, contracted by him privately, not through agency, So security guards in most countries, even the U.S. or Europe or Latin America, security guards work for security agencies, for organizations in which they have they do background checks for for people working in security. Typically, usually, it's people who have served in an armed forces or ex-police officers who that after retirement, after quitting their jobs as a member of the law enforcement officer, they go into private security, which they create their own security organizations, and they provide their services through agencies, in a very much organized way. In the case of McAfee in Belize, in this beautiful Ambergris Cay, just 6 miles from this famous town of San Pedro, very well known in some music, some lyrics that we know of, that he kept a private, almost like I'm not saying private army, but a good number, more than half a dozen people, working for him, working as security guards, armed not just with a shotgun, for with long arm weapons, Um, the display on social media was that he traveled all beautiful mountains, rivers, and in urban areas with these well armed security people, and that of course uh, respecting the laws of the land. The land is Belize in this case, a small country of a little over 300,000 people. I mean that Belize just became independent in the early 1980s from the British, from the United Kingdom. But they still have a parliamentary system in which laws are enacted. So we assume that, not we assume that, we are sure that the laws in Belize very much follow the parliamentary system of the British, of the United Kingdom. in some case, but of course applying to the local cost to the local local people who live in Belize. So, assuming that everything was, of course, legal. I mean, legally, you know, uh, all this was done, of course, by him traveling all over the place. I mean, very much, in the area where he was living. I mean, he was, of course, technically, yes, he was exercising his Second Amendment in a foreign land, in a way, but respecting the laws of the list. Of course, the Second Amendment doesn't apply in a foreign land, in Belize, of course, or anywhere in Latin America, Europe, or anywhere you and I, anywhere you go. I mean, just basically. So if you think about, I mean, when you live in the U.S., for instance, right, and then in mainland USA, and well, you're planning to go to a foreign land, and since elementary school, elementary fifth grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, social studies teachers start telling you about the Constitution, about your Second Amendment rights, about all the 26th Amendment. They're trying to introduce you to some of the law of the land, of course, and that's very much common knowledge in the U.S. society of the right to bear arms. I think the Second Amendment is one of the best known of the amendments. If for any reason you don't know the rest of the amendments, of course the First Amendment is very well mentioned, the freedom of speech and such. But Second Amendment is one that almost anybody, almost more than 90% of people can tell you, oh, the Second Amendment right is this and this and that, and they by heart, right? So because it's very much in the public eye that has been discussed. I mean, it's in a way it's like a political football during election season. We know that in the U.S. Politics, of course. That one of course, some people against it, some people to have to advocating to make a reform about that, about what does it mean with all this crisis of violence in major U.S. cities, and schools. I mean, in high schools, those mass shootings that uh, it's common, very more and more frequent in the U.S. Educational system. Hopefully, with the new government there is a reform too. I mean, there's an efficiency issues, out on the table, and that could be one of the issues that could be tackled in the new government, and of course U.S. Congress. But we're talking here about exercising your Second Amendment right in a foreign land, fellows. Once you uh, start making the plans and executing the plans, pulling the trigger, and make the move of going to a foreign land. In this case, let's say you go into the Philippines. Uh, like many thousands of other people from Western countries, looking for law, looking for happiness. I mean, of course, you are not. Uh, there is a very much attraction in the Philippines about the idea of the low cost of living and finding your bride, your new significant other, of course, and many millions of Americans thinking about it. I mean, not just the Philippines, but Latin American too. Many good, beautiful spots and beautiful countries in Latin America where you can go, including Mexico, For everything people they're saying about the violence with the cartels and gangs, Mexico is very attractive for foreigners, not just Americans, Canadians, Europeans. So to be clear, I mean, let's say you're moving, you buy the ticket now, and then you have the ticket, the airplane ticket, and ready to make that 8,000 miles journey to the Philippines. Go to the airport, uh, take the airplane, the airline, where you're taking it to Southeast Asia, going to the Philippines. The minute that the takeoff time, the minute the airplane takes off, 12 miles later, you hit the international waters, right? That's it. That's beyond that. This is the international law now, international waters. So your Second Amendment right ends right there. 12 miles, 12 miles, nautical miles from the U.S. shores. So now Now you travel to a foreign land 8,000 miles away, the Philippines. Guess what? I mean, there's no such thing as you keeping your Second Amendment, but it goes with you because it's in your DNA. I mean, you were raised after, if you are 60 years old, 65, 70, 75 years old. I mean, all your life. Think about it. You were raised, you were bred, in the community where uh, you have the knowledge of your Second Amendment right, that you can basically, if you are a good citizen, good with good behavior, no bad, no felonies and or misdemeanors that can be clearly, put you out of the radar. I mean, or out of, that you can be, you can buy in most states, right? You can really buy firearms, right? You can be in a possession of weapons, firearms. So, but other than that, you, it's very common to have people who have six, seven, eight, nine, 10 firearms. I mean, long, even AR-15, long shot, short firearms and also long arm firearms. But most people do it for hunting and to protect their property, to protect their families. Well, that was the whole issue of the Second Amendment, right? That you can, protect your family, your loved one, yourself, your life. I mean, there was very much the thinking back then, over 200 years ago, about it was the meaning of that to protect your, I mean, the sanctity of your household, the sanctity of your life. I mean, everyone's life is valuable. My life, your life too, of course. But now you settle in, you call home a foreign, country, which is the Philippines, that millions of Americans and other experts from other countries call home. So now what you do now? You get the cases. I mean, just recently, just days ago, of Ralph Eugene Manical, just a young man from, I say young man, 50, 55, 56 years old when he would just pass away. I mean, he was killed, he was assassinated, he was murdered in a street of this province, Abu Sandel Sur, that in which, in the eastern part of, of the Mindanao, the island of Mindanao, which is considered, not all Mindanao is considered red zone, but the eastern part in this town is a resort area which is out of the what is considered red zone, which is in southern Mindanao, right? So, doing a routine extraction of your routine visit to the ATM machine with his uh, with his spouse, a member of the LGBTQ community, which is, again, it has nothing to do with anything, a third person involved or anything like, that has to do with the with gender here. But this was a common, so far as we know, at this as we speak, it was a common robbery that took place at 9:40, 9 after 9 o'clock p.m. in one of the streets where, nearby a hotel where they were not supposed to check in, which it didn't happen, of course. I mean, the tragic end of this somebody's life uh, is just sad for anybody, any expert anywhere in Latin America, anywhere in Mexico. We can keep our eyes open about what's going on in the world. I mean, not just in the Philippines or Asia or Thailand. I mean, in Thailand, the which has been a very popular sport, popular spots for expat. They are enacting laws that can be almost impossible for the expat to, for a small, misdemeanor. I mean, they'll throw your life in prison. I mean, that or death. Who knows? Even they're debating about death penalty for things that. I mean, of course, most of us, the majority of us, are good, good people, honest people. We just wanna find, find happiness. That's the first thing. Find happiness wherever we can find it, whether this is Latin America, Asia, the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, anywhere we can. So that what happened here, right? What's going on in here with recent, murder and recent killings. I mean, in the first case we're talking about here with this American from Massachusetts who was just killed days ago. But if we take a look, we go a little back, or a few months like 3 months ago. Remember Elliot Itzman, this fellow from the state of Vermont, a 26-year-old who went to Mindanao, southern Mindanao. This is considered red zone, where the several armed groups operate. I mean, that from that has been listed from in the United States. The State Department and the Filipino government has listed this group as a terrorist organization. Of course, there's a political motives about what's going on there, but look, if you move into to an area where, I mean, that has been, warnings and warnings and warnings every year, the State Department has issued warnings about what the situation is in Mindanao, especially southern Mindanao. I mean, this is the level. It was raised to level 4 red zone. I mean, with this kind of warning, I mean, he was this first, gentleman, Elliot Eastman, this guy from uh, Vermont. Well, he found love in a red zone. I mean, red zone meaning, I'm not saying everybody there is bad people. I'm not. All I'm saying is that it's considered risky area. It's considered that very risky to live there and even to visit. There has been, of course, reports that many people, some people visit the area for a day or two, and uh, some people are very adventurous. I mean, you can be adventure. It's an adventure just to go to a foreign land, right? But in a place like that, well, they never found the body. Think about that. I mean, the suffering, the painful situation for relatives, for loved ones and family members. Never to found. Elliot Desmond's body was never found. But of course, they caught the killers. I mean, these assassins. I mean, they caught, except for one that escaped, and but the motive was kidnapped for ransom. I mean, they had to they shot him dead. I mean, they would never get the money, the killers, and the body was never found. But think about what people can do for love, right? Apparently the only motive was he got in love. He fell in love with a Muslim girl. I'm nothing bad with it, but he will stay living there. Living, what if they have made as a couple made a better decision to move? Knowing that foreigners in that particular area can be at high risk. If I mean, he was this Elliot this month, sadly passed away long, 3 months ago. He was a YouTuber also that in which he displayed. I mean, he was reporting about what life was every day life of his routine and stuff, and basically he was announcing what could happen to him. I mean, he knew a little bit about. I'm not here you know to blame the victim game. That's not the case. But yes, uh, let's touch reality. I mean, the reality is that he was a little bit somehow irresponsible, not too responsible in a way that he knew a little bit that he was at risk, and he said that that's what he saw around him. I mean, in this urban area, that so why not make it could have been a different story today, but and just think about the idea of that in both cases, in the recent case just 4 or 5 days ago, in which this American was killed in the eastern province, right? In the eastern province, which is out of the red zone. The initial report says that in both cases, what was used long arm rifles. I mean, how many of you and me have seen people carrying long arm rifles, in urban areas? Well, of course, if you have legally registered your own long arm rifle, I assume that you can have on the trunk of your vehicle. I mean, there's regulations on that. You can just carry. I mean, in your neighborhood, a long range rifle, especially AR-15. I mean, because it's type, rifles. But in both cases, was shot. In both cases, in the Elliot Isman case and the Mr. Ralph Manical case, the killers used long rifles and long arm rifles. Think about that. I mean, and at this particular moment, this month, February, I mean, as we speak, is election season in the Philippines, and the Filipino laws establishes that every Filipino who has, weapons in their home, weapons, legally registered, of course, of course, criminal are not gonna come and turn on their weapons, but they're supposed to bring the weapons to a police post and turn them in during the election season, because the experience is that during election time in the Philippines, there's a lot of violence, violence, political violence in a way. So having a possession of firearms that could trigger, just by nature, right? Having a firearm, any debate, any heated discussion, politics can be toxic, not just in the U.S. or other Latin American countries, anywhere in Asia too. That's the trend, guys. I mean, don't get me wrong, but people can just, in a heated debate, they can just do anything crazy. So the law in the Philippines establishes that if you have, you just turn it in. If you have registered, legally in possess of rifles or firearms or weapon or any sort, right? So so now the other thing is that if you, as a good citizen in a possession of firearm, you turn it in your weapon. Now you're disarmed. You are at the mercy of criminals in a way, but we respect, think about that too. If you are an expat living in the Philippines, of course, you are not exercising, you don't have your Second Amendment right, that you can exercise in the Philippine, country, right? You're an expat. Most of you, most with not green card, so the residence card, and some in temporary visas. But you live there. This is the place you call home. I mean, you found happiness. That you found this Filipino that you were looking for. There are so many beautiful stories, like Mark Thornton stories, and many others. Don't get me wrong, right? Many others in the Philippines. So that so the reflection, the call is to try to anywhere we are. I mean, we have to, of course, protect ourselves. I mean, protect our families, properties, and stuff, right, from bad people. But in moderation, I mean, right, knowing, take extra precautions of where to go, how to go, what time, who is in your surrounding. I mean, your social network, so social network of people you read to, and of course, the of course every expert is considering the Philippines. I mean, this is a developing country. It's considered, many people consider expats, from Europe or the mainland USA, Canada. They see you uh, as having, you moved there because you have a lot of money. Or who knows? Maybe they think you're rich, especially if they can they look at on your social media, having own properties, like properties anywhere in the USA, even in a working class house that you own in the USA. And when they see, the display of that, which is not like it's not even $1 million house, but in a working class neighborhood anywhere in the USA, they'll consider you as a rich person. Let's think about that. But of course, I'm not talking here about the Filipino people as a whole. The country is a conservative society. The Filipino society is a very conservative society, respectful of the rule of law. People respect. There are so many family values. That just like in Latin America. Remember the Filipino society. We share with Latin America so many values. I mean, the Spanish, influence is big in the Philippines. Remember that many even names, Negros, or I mean, many names of cities, towns, and boulevards in Spanish. So there is a great influence of the Spanish culture and values, like family values, especially. So talking about values. So most Filipino people are very, polite, nice, very caring people, very compassionate people. That's one of the attraction of living there in the Philippines in the first place. That people consider respectful, of the elders, respectful for the family values. People live in compounds, kind of, like if you marry a Filipina, basically you're marrying the whole family. I mean, your extended family, you can count them by the hundreds. Just like in Latin America, in my case, my wife's relatives are counted in the hundreds, and every time I see them or they see me, they count me as one of their own, and it's like they're that like they knew me from a long time. So it's a very close. I can call my my brother-in-laws or sister-in-laws anytime. I mean, just for almost nothing. They just show up without calling. Think about that. I mean, I'm here, filming this video, and they just come, knock the door, hi, without calling. I mean, remember that in most Western society, you visit someone. Think about that. There's a different culture, right? You visit them, you have to call the person. Hey, can we get together like in a week in advance? Sometime, you know the rat race. You don't have no time in Western societies. Most of the time, there is no time for nothing almost. I mean, but to have a visit, you have to call the person. I mean, if it's your cousin, your relative, your good friend, even your best friend, you have to call before visiting them. In Latin America, you just show up. I mean, you just come. You just come. Surprise. Well, we're here. Let's have something to do, something to to eat, or like start cooking together in the kitchen and have a little barbecue, cook baleadas. I mean, cook whatever in Latin America, tacos and this, and so it's very much in these societies. Uh, we share those values. But here we're talking about how to exercise your Second Amendment right. You can't. I mean, we can't. Right? You can't. We know the experience of McAfee experience in Belize, which I'm not. I'm just referring to this experience of his experience and his life in Belize, which was a very extreme, adventurous life. That I'm not saying that we should follow that example of like having a cache of weapons, to protect your property if you live in Latin America. I'm not saying that that's the best example. All I'm saying that, well, guy, if in an extreme case, if you have so much assets in Latin America, now any country will live, well, if you have to do what you're gonna do, right? I mean, if you are in that case of situation. But most of us, most of you guys, most of you, I mean, you're on Social Security. I mean, Social Security check you pensions from your former, company, good pensions. It could be good pensions, and I mean, but you don't. Besides, legally, most foreigners in the Philippines don't have their, it's the Filipina, the wife, or the spouse, if it's a female or male, right, is the one who owns the property. I mean, you build a place in a, legally it's hard. You have to become a U.S., I mean, Filipino citizens to buy a property in the Philippines. Uh, so that takes time. Even if you become a Filipino citizens, of course, you have to go by the rules of the land in the Philippines, right? To own property and then on and on. I mean, that's it's a place what you call home, of course. And most of us, we follow the rules, we follow the laws. I mean, as a foreigner, anywhere you are in the Philippines, of course. But hopefully, this experience of these killings, I would say, because that's how we're gonna call. I mean, we don't want to be like take the red like a red note, or too much emphasizing this situation. But we have to really be mindful of what really is going on around us, right? So thanks for guys for being watching this content, and for your subscription. I mean, thanks for being a subscriber to this channel. And if you like, please hit the like button, and see you in the next video. Take care now. Bye bye. May God bless you all. Thanks.